in the early 2000s, I was exposed to some of the heavy metal bands in the United States and in Europe, and one of my favorite was Rammstein. And I said, well, I like the real heavy edge that they have, and I wanted to try to write some songs around it, and that's how the Sexual Savior album developed. And and that was a little more from the classic rock style of Platinum God, my first solo album, which was recorded around the same time that we did the Muscle of Love album in the mid-70s. So that was more of a more classic rock. And I wanted something a little more contemporary at the time, the 2000s, with the real heavy sort of European edge to it. And that's the idea where Killsmith came up. It's still a Neal Smith project, solo project, but I wanted to give it a name, and a name that I could do different things with. And in this instance, I gave a person that name as well. So that's how it came.
Is it some kind of alter ego for you, like Alice for the singer Alice Cooper?
No, well, the name we used to call before the term heavy metal was around in the early 70s in Detroit. We used to call really, powerful rock like Jimi Hendrix or The Who, really loud, kill rock. So I thought, and kill was the power of the music, and it was like a killer. And so I just decided to put that with my name, Smith, but not necessarily like that. If someone's a goldsmith or a blacksmith is someone that works in iron. A goldsmith is someone that works in gold, silversmith in silver. It also has to do with working in metals, the name Smith attached to it. So I thought, okay, kill, Smith, it's heavy metal and it means kill, and Smith, the person that's involved in that trade.
How many albums have you done after the Alice Cooper band broke up?
Well, I've played on the Plasmatics from the United States, New York area. I played their second album, Buck Dharma from Blue Oyster Cult. I played on his solo album, a couple of songs back in the early 80s, along with the Plasmatics. Dennis Dunaway, Joe Bouchard from Blue Oyster Dennis Dunaway from the original Alice Cooper, Joe Bouchard from Blue Oyster Cult, and myself put together a band in the late 80s called Dead Ringer, and we did one album on Grudge Records in the United States, recorded that one. And then I got into the real estate business in the U.S., selling homes. And so for about 20, 25 years, I really didn't do a lot. And then when Glenn Buxton, our original guitar player from Alice Cooper, right before he passed away in 1997, we did some shows in Dallas, Texas, which kind of wasn't even 10 years after the Dead Ringer album. Sort of got me back into it and let me know there's fans out there still, the original Alice Cooper group fans. And so I decided to get a little more involved as time went on. And then early 2000s, around the same time I was exposed to Rammstein, the real metal stuff, Dennis Dunaway and myself and Joe Bouchard put a band together called Bouchard, Dunaway and Smith. And we did some shows in France and in the UK in 2002. And we did two albums, one studio album, one live album. And then I put a band together. I didn't put it together, but a friend of mine, Peter Catucci, who's also involved, he's a bass player involved in the Killsmith project, he asked me, he had a friend from New York, and they wanted to do like sort of a jam, real mellow album, but I wanted to use all hand percussion. I have a very big collection of tablas and bongos and congas and timbales and all the hand, and a lot of Native American drums as well. And so we did two albums, cinematic, and the cinematic One Full Moon Away in the early 2000s. And then after that project, I decided to, Bouchard, Dunaway and Smith wasn't really playing anymore, so I started putting the Killsmith together. So those are all the albums I've done since the band's been around. And then of course, 2015, the original band did a reunion in Dallas, Texas, the same place, not the same place, but the same area where Glenn played in 1997. But that was in Houston, but in Dallas we did Good Records. And we did a reunion. Dennis had just written a book, and he was doing a book signing, an interview, but it was the same couple of days that Alice was playing in Dallas. He was opening for Motley Crue at the time. Yeah. And so we got together and did a show, and it was recorded, and that album was released a year ago, and the movie now is in film festivals in Europe and America and in South America, and it's doing the film circuits right now. And I was hoping maybe we could get it in a film festival here in Finland at some point too, before it actually goes available to the public. So
Yeah.
so
I'd
that was
like to say that.
that was the last. No, it came out great, and it's about an hour long, and it was a fun, spontaneous. Bob Ezrin, our producer, who did all of our hit albums, he mixed the album, and it sounds great, and for a live album. So that was another one. Then of course, Alice, when we were inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2011. Right before that, we recorded Welcome to My Nightmare, Alice's follow-up album. Dennis and Mike Bruce and myself did 3 new songs on there. Michael wrote one, I wrote one, and Dennis wrote one. And then on the Paranormal album, which was released, I think last summer, 2018, again, we played 3 songs on that album and wrote those songs as well. So there has been a lot of recording going on, and I still want to do an original band album with Bob Ezrin one day, but we'll see what happens.
Didn't you guys do this hologram gig as well at some point? Do I remember correctly?
Well,
was it the original?
Yes, exactly, for Jägermeister.
Okay.
That was in 2011, right after the Hall of Fame. And we went to Los Angeles, and we played the original band again, because of course we played at the Hall of Fame in 2011. And then we went to Los Angeles, played a show out there, and then we also did a hologram for Jägermeister that was it was called 4D, 4 Dimensions. And it was interesting to shoot that and film that, because you had to play the whole set from beginning to end and not stop. There was no rest. So it was like playing a real life, but you're recording it and filming it, so it had to be perfect. And it was in like a 3D hologram, live.
And it was aired at another location.
In the UK.
In the UK.
Yeah.
At this, like live.
Yes, yeah, like
as
a live
holograms.
like a live show, but
Yeah.
we were holograms on stage. Yeah, I never saw it.
Yeah.
Somebody tried to.
They usually do that with artists who are not longer with us.
Yes, well, we are still with us, so that's the good news.
Both Dennis and Michael and Alice have written their memoirs. I read an interview with you that you had started writing yours, but then kind of forgot about the project. What's up with your book?
Well, I started I'm about 3/4 through the book, and when the Hall of Fame happened in 2011, it sort of shifted my my agenda from finishing the book. I still want to do it someday to finish it, but I'm working with, writing the music and just traveling a lot, and that's why I'm here in Finland. In the winter I go to Arizona in the United States, and also still live in Connecticut. So I do a lot of traveling, right? And I just kind of put it on the back burner and didn't finish it. But I will someday.
How did you watch Alice's career from like 75 to 1980 when he started going upwards, and you had all these troubles with the $1 Million Babies, the band, and stuff? Were you guys ever like jealous of, damn, he's making it, and we're not going so good for us?
No, we just looked. I mean, there could have been one of the biggest lawsuits in history, because we all own the name Alice Cooper together. And so, when it happened, the only thing that we all agreed to get back together and record, which would have been the ninth Alice Cooper album, the eighth studio album. And when he decided to go on his own, that was the only thing that I was a little bit disappointed in, because he, the agreement was we made a gentleman's agreement, everybody do the project, then we come back and do the next group album. There was never any talk of anybody going solo and going to stay on the career. But if Michael Bruce's album would have been a hit, maybe he would have done the same thing. Peter Frampton did that. He did a solo album and went from Humble Pie. So it does happen. And it was a gamble that we took. We didn't think it was going to happen, but it did. But after it happened, I mean, the music we play was different. Alice's music is different than the original band. I don't care what anybody says. And I've heard all of his songs. I love, he's been a great. He carried on the tradition amazingly. All five of us created what he still does today.
Now, as a co-writer for a lot of the classic songs, you still get the royalties from the hit songs.
Yep.
Which one is the most lucrative song for you?
Well, I think for everybody, it's Dennis once said, he said that I'm 18, put food on the table for us, put food on the table, but School's Out bought the table. So School's Out is the #1 song that is still played all over the world all the time, and that's the biggest moneymaker for us.
Do you have any idea of how many million albums the band sold worldwide?
I think it has to be in excess of 25, 30 million. And Alice is probably in his own solo career is, possibly doubled that. So there's been a lot of Alice Cooper albums over the years, and they still keep selling, and the internet is another great place that music is. Every time the technology changes, more people are exposed to the music.
What do you remember about this particular gig?
Oh, Mare Sol? Yeah, that was in Puerto Rico, I think in 71 or 72. I'm not sure what year it was in.
Killer tour.
72. And what I remember from it is that we went on a fishing trip and we caught some big fish because we were down there for a couple of days for a holiday. But it was for us, it was just another big outdoor concert. And of course, Puerto Rico was it's like a big party. I think it was a full weekend, but we played, I think, only one night, one show. And luckily, there's not too many live recordings that were done back in the day. So this and people always say, why didn't you have more live albums? Well,
everybody did live albums in the 70s.
Yeah, but we didn't.
Successful, like Frampton Comes Alive and Kiss Alive.
Yeah, but we didn't do a per se live recorded album. We have live recordings from the movie Good to See You Again, Alice Cooper, that was done in Dallas and in Fort Worth when we were in Texas. They brought in a mobile unit, but that was for the music for the movie. Eventually, it came out on a deluxe set maybe 8 or 10 years ago. It was the original $1 Billion Baby album CD, and then the live version of the songs, and it came out pretty good. And but that was really the only time we brought a real recording studio in, a mobile unit, to take the pictures, to record the band.
Are there any plans of doing something similar to the deluxe version of $1 Billion Baby, something with School's Out or Killer?
Well, to my best of my knowledge, there's no other live versions of the songs.
As the band had quite a bizarre image in the 70s, do you remember any bizarre fans that you met? Did you have any scary, crazy guys around following you?
well, hopefully all of our fans were crazy and scary. That was the fun. That was the fun thing. It was like every night was Halloween for us, you know. And then the fans, they eventually caught on to it, and even people like Ace Frehley and Gene Simmons and some of those people caught on to it as well, and they went a whole other direction and did what they did. And Plasmatics, the same thing. And so not only did the fans, but a lot of the fans became musicians or were musicians, and they took their own version of kind of crazy theatrical rock. But the fans were always great, and they were different. We had, when we go to San Francisco, the crazy drag queens out there, and they were crazy, and they loved us. And all these guys dressed up like women from the late 1800s in the United States, and the old casinos and the bars, and they were a trip. And so, you know, and then you get the more leather guys in New York City and Detroit, and they're crazy, but in a different way. So there was just so many people that never really had a band that they could say was, you know, like them, like outcasts. The Stones were kind of like bad boys of rock and roll, but being a bad boy of rock and roll and actually being thrown in an insane asylum, that's a little bit different. Now the people that were in insane asylums had a band that they could call their own.